Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. I'm so thrilled you're here today because, well, we're looking at something absolutely fascinating. Have you ever wondered why certain songs seem to contain the entire universe within just a few minutes of audio? What if I told you that our most beloved songs actually contain a hidden academic framework? It's like a secret architecture that literally shapes how we view the world. So today, we're exploring the cultural production of scale, and we're going to do it through the lens of one of the most famous pop classics of all time. Listen to how the legend himself, Louis Armstrong, described his connection to the song. He said, "Lucille and I, ever since we're married, we've been right there in that block. I saw 3 generations come up on that block. So when they hand me this wonderful world, I didn't look no further. That was it." I absolutely love starting with this quote because it instantly humanizes the great Satchmo. It takes this massive, universally recognized global hit and grounds it right in the deeply personal, local streets of his neighborhood in Corona, Queens.
Okay, let's dive into this. Section 1, The Anatomy of a Classic.
To really get this track, we first need to look at its turbulent history. Picture it, 1967. The cultural backdrop in the U.S. is intensely fractured. Songwriters Bob Thiele and George David Weiss composed the track right in the middle of widespread protests over the Vietnam War, racial injustice, women's rights, and environmental destruction. Their explicit intention was basically to remind people that despite everything, the world really is great. Now, interestingly enough, they originally pitched it to the popular croner Tony Bennett. He turned it down, though, music historians do sometimes dispute that detail. Ultimately, Weiss brought it to Louis Armstrong, specifically because his massive, warm personality appealed to mixed audiences across a very divided nation. It was a song searching for its perfect messenger.
And man, did that messenger transform it entirely. Fast forward to 1970, Armstrong appeared on The David Frost Show. He sat there in this mustard-colored chair and sang the song accompanied by just a piano. Stripped of those lush orchestral arrangements from the record, his gravelly voice and shaky vibrato completely took center stage. As our source material beautifully points out, that specific, intimate performance took what was written as a voiced declaration and turned it into a profound, voiced meditation.
Right, let's keep moving. Section 2, Music as a Scale Maker. So we're going to pivot our narrative just a bit here, from pure music history over to cultural geography. Let's establish our core definition for this explainer. The cultural production of scale is this brilliant concept explored by academic Phil Dodds. It describes how sets of spatial frames, ranging all the way from the micro-local to the global macro, aren't just natural facts that exist out in the wild. Instead, they're actively produced, manipulated, and constructed through cultural practices. And yep, that includes music. Musicians are actually expert practitioners of what researchers call scalecraft. They literally build political and geographic frames using sound.
And this brilliantly illustrates how it works. Think of the multiscalar systems of our society kind of like interlocking geometric patterns. Scaling is basically like zooming in and out on a digital map. Cultural scale-making connects the tiny, granular details of our everyday lives to the vast, sweeping structures of the whole world. And music can physically mimic that zoom. To really wrap our heads around this, let's compare 2 very different musical scales. On the left side, we have the microscale. Think of grime music. It's characterized by this intense postcode localism, staccato rapping, and hyper-specific, fine-grained neighborhood references. It deliberately builds a micro-world. Then on the right, we have the macro scale. Think of the expansive, Afrofuturist, cyber-soul world-building of Janelle Monáe's Metropolis concept albums, or the sweeping universalism of Louis Armstrong. Musicians deliberately target and construct these different geographic scales to affect us in very specific ways.
Which brings us to Section 3, From Queens to the World. Let's bring it back to Armstrong and look at the exact musical mechanics of how his 1967 hit pulls off this perfect zoom out. Here is the hidden architecture of the song broken down into 3 steps. Step 1 is the local observation. Armstrong focuses right in on the intimate micro scale with the lyric, "I hear babies crying, I watch them grow," thinking back to those 3 generations on his block in Corona. Step 2 is the really fascinating part, the tritone substitution. This is a specific, somewhat jarring musical chord change that acts as a literal sonic bridge. Then step 3 is the universal claim. The music swells as the lyrics expand to a massive macro conclusion. They'll learn much more than I'll ever know. That tritone substitution chord is the literal sound of a logical leap from local streets to what academic Edouard Glissant calls whole-world thinking.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is Section 4, A Rocky Road to Number 1. Despite being an absolute masterclass in scale jumping, this masterpiece almost failed completely in the United States. Let's trace this chaotic timeline. In 1967, the song is written and accepted by Armstrong. They actually end up recording it at 2 a.m. in a studio, right after Armstrong finished a midnight show at the Tropicana Hotel in Las Vegas. Fast forward to 1968, it gets released by ABC Records, but it gets absolutely zero traction in the US. Why? Well, because ABC's president, Larry Newton, literally hated it. He completely refused to promote it because he just wanted another upbeat, bouncy hit like Hello Dolly. But then, later in 1968, the song finds this raving reception in Great Britain, reaching #1 on the UK singles chart. That effectively forced the rest of the world to sit up and listen.
70. That is the age Louis Armstrong was when he passed away from heart disease in 1971. Because of that rocky domestic release we just talked about, Armstrong never actually saw What a Wonderful World hit #1 on the American charts during his lifetime. Yet his performance, completely fueled by that big grin and gravelly warmth, left it behind as a worldwide standard of hope and optimism.
Let's move to and see how this builds in Section 5, the song's new lives.
We're going to explore what academics call the ongoing social lives of things as this song continues to jump scales across space and time. Because the song is so perfectly engineered to bridge the local and the universal, it operates globally today in some truly incredible ways. It was used at a 2019 climate protest in Lyski, Sweden. It was sung outside the Lviv train station during the Russian invasion of Ukraine. It inspired artistic responses to the 2020 Black Lives Matter protests in the United States, and it was even adapted into a 1995 children's book illustrated by the renowned artist Ashley Bryan. It just leaps from context to context, maintaining its power everywhere it goes.
To give you one beautiful, hyper-local example of these new lives, check out the work of Mary Booher. She's a Quaker quilter based in Bar Harbor, Maine. She encountered Ashley Bryan's children's book. Later, inspired by that book and reflecting on the 2020 BLM protests, she actually translated the song's lyrics and themes of inclusion into a handmade quilt. It's a perfect example of how a piece of mass-produced global pop culture can scale all the way back down into a deeply personal, localized piece of physical art.
Which leaves us with this final thought for today's explainer. The album What a Wonderful World turned 50 back in 2018. Looking at how it currently operates, how will the cultural production of scale inspire the song's next 50 years? And maybe more importantly, the next time you put on your headphones, I really challenge you to listen closely. Ask yourself, what hidden architecture of scale is playing out in the music you consume every single day? Are you being zoomed in or zoomed out? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep listening closely.